Thank you, Mr. Gray, for allowing me to call this debate. I'm very grateful for members turning up today, for braving the snow and ice to be here on the final day of the parliamentary term. Now, this is a debate which I consider to be an extremely important one, which I believe that both members and the public will welcome the opportunity to discuss here. There is barely a constituency in the country which does not contain a local high street of sorts, whether that be in a village, town or city, rural community or urban area. Our high streets are the beating hearts of our local communities. They are the vital hubs where essential services are located, where people meet for both business and recreation. The small shops based in these centres are often run by hard-working, small independent businesses, employing local staff who provide a really personal service to their communities, at the same time as keeping money spent within the local economy. In recent years, there's been a great deal of focus around the decline of local high streets. In many communities, independent retailers have come under threat. They have faced a rising burden of regulation and tax, a daily battle against crime and violence, and competition from the growth of out-of-town shopping centres. It has been estimated that in 2009 alone, 12,000 independent shops closed. Across the country, one does not have to look too far to witness the sad sight of rows of empty shops along high street stores, either boarded up or left vacant for months upon end. In Kingswood, my constituency, the situation is no different. For many years, there have been the concerns of local people, constituents I meet on the door at my surgeries, that Kingswood High Street, while still a great place to shop and featuring some fantastic local stores, could be improved or given a better chance to stand up against out-of-town shopping centres, to once again become the beacon of the Kingswood community. They have told me that for too long, Kingswood seemed to have been forgotten about by politicians or those in authority, and that by allowing local high streets to fall into disrepair, it sent out a message that we do not care about our local community. I am determined that in Kingswood this must change, and as the new local MP, I pledge that for the first time in 18 years, Kingswood would have its own MP's office based in Kingswood on the high street. Now, this is not merely a token symbol. It is testament to my own commitment to make Kingswood a better place to live and work, to invest in our local area. Now, this is one of the reasons why I've called this debate today, since I believe that many of the issues we face in Kingswood are exactly the same issues that need to be resolved on a national level through government action and legislation passed here in Parliament. It is here we can give local people and local communities in Kingswood and elsewhere the opportunity to influence and shape the destiny of local high streets. Indeed, we must. After all, local high streets are the backbones of our local communities. A thriving high street points to a thriving community, but it must be the community that is at the very centre of deciding the future of their local high streets. In discussing the regeneration of local high streets, I do not wish to suggest that Kingswood High Street is by any means in a state of disrepair, or that we're witnessing the so-called death of the local high street left to supposedly rot by the increasing development of out-of-town shopping centres and malls. I merely wish to discuss here today what we can do to make it a better place, and to discuss amongst ourselves what we can learn from each other's experiences in different local areas about what really works. In many ways, Kingswood High Street has all the ingredients to thrive, restoring it to its former glory. The King's Chase Shopping Centre has done excellent work in restoring the fabric of the covered shopping area, while the introduction of a new Boswell's Cafe is a welcome move that will no doubt increase footfall. But it is the recent establishment of the Kingswood Business Association that I believe gives greatest hope to the area. Working tirelessly to promote Kingswood, the Business Association is working with South Gloucestershire Council to make Kingswood High Street as vibrant a place as any. The association is currently in the middle of carrying out a health checker exercise, asking what are the needs of businesses in the local area? What are their future needs in order to make Kingswood a sustainable place to work and shop? On the basis of this understanding about what they need to maintain the vitality of Kingswood High Street, the Kingswood Business Association are proactively seeking to find tenants to fill empty units, businesses that will particularly help to complement existing ones. It is by tackling the early symptoms of degeneration that ensures local businesses take an important steer in the future direction of their high street, taking responsibility for their local area, and I welcome the recent launch of the Healthy High Street Guide by the Business Minister, in order to promote good practice that is already taking place in Kingswood to a wider national level. The Kingswood Business Association has also recognised that there are many ways in which the High Street can be promoted for little cost by organising community events which can bring local people into the area to see what they're missing. This year, for instance, the Armed Forces Day celebration, with veterans marching side by side down Kingswood High Street, was a great success, and stalwart organisations such as the Friends of Kingswood Park and other leading champions such as Diane Block and George Castoris should be given credit for all the hard work they have put in over the years to make such events a success. Next year, as the local MP, I'm hoping to make Kingswood High Street the focus for the community celebrations once again. This time I want to make Kingswood the place to celebrate St George's Day, and I'm currently working to organise a parade along the High Street to mark this. Local high streets can be the perfect place to celebrate such events, events which, though simple, are effective, helping to bring people together and getting local businesses talking to one another. And yet, sustaining a local high street and a community cannot just be about organising events or shopping locally for independent small shops. We need to act as a government to provide the brakes for independent small businesses to thrive. For many small businesses on local high streets, rate relief helps to keep many financially afloat. Yet at the same time, many small businesses do not know about or even take up small business rate relief and consequently pay money which they do not actually need to pay to local authorities. After the Federation of Small Business began a campaign for rate relief to be applied automatically, rather than for businesses to go through the bureaucratic process of applying for it, automatic small business rate relief has been introduced in Northern Ireland. As a result, this has injected over £8 million into the local economy and benefited 16,000 small businesses. It is to be welcomed that the Localism Bill now proposes to allow small business rate relief to be paid automatically to eligible small businesses. I know that South Gloucestershire Council made a submission under the Sustainable Communities Act for automatic small business rate relief and is extremely pleased to see ministers act upon this proposal. I also welcome the commitment in the Local Growth White Paper to double small business rate relief for 1 year from October, with eligible ratepayers with rateable values below £6,000 paying no rates at all for that year. It is also welcome that the government is committed to take legislation through the House to ensure that no supplementary business rate can be imposed without the backing of local firms in a referendum. I particularly welcome the consideration of the possibility of giving local authorities wide-ranging and discretionary powers to grant business rates discounts so that they can respond to local circumstances by reducing business rate bills. In Kingswood, this might provide the opportunity for the High Street to become an enterprise growth zone, offering local businesses and retail organisations the opportunity to invest in Kingswood with the reward of lower rates, creating our very own enterprise zone. It is absolutely.
Damien Collins.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend. Would you agree with me that the ideas he talks about rate discounts will be particularly interesting for food businesses, often quite traditional food businesses like grocers, bakers, butchers, who often have quite tight margins and can really struggle if they've got in a particularly highly rated area?
That's an extremely interesting point that I hadn't considered, but obviously there are many shops on the high street of that nature, so it would be extremely valuable indeed. Equally promising is the £1 billion of government funding that has been set aside for councils that welcome new housing development, which they will be able to spend to benefit their local economy. Within Kingswood, there are currently areas of brownfield land in need of development. At the same time, there is a great need for more affordable housing in the area. As part of the New Homes bonus, the government's proposals to match the council tax raised from the construction of new homes, supplemented by £350 per home for the first 6 years, will provide the opportunity for even greater investment in Kingswood, which might possibly be spent on improving the local high street and its surrounding areas. Increased investment and financial incentives are vital to protecting our local high streets. But we must also seek to address the imbalance between our historic local high streets and the growth of larger out-of-town retail centres, or malls. It is here we have the chance to learn the lessons of the past, not to penalise small businesses in favour of larger retail outlets. And I welcome the change in attitude displayed in the Coalition's programme for government, which states that it will seek to ensure a level playing field between small and large retailers by enabling councils to take
On that point, would you agree with me that the Mayor of London's Great Outdoors programme has been particularly successful in this regard? And my constituency in Orpington has been lucky enough to benefit from this programme because Orpington was beset by structural decline for many years, with Blue Water just a few miles down the road on one side and great shopping centre in Bromley on the other. And this year, in July, it was lucky enough to benefit from a 2.2 million regeneration programme, one of 50, that the Great Outdoors programme has used to regenerate outdoor spaces and urban centres across the region.
I'm sure my honourable friend will agree with me that the Mayor is a great visionary and we can learn a lot from many of his ideas that he's proposed so far in his tenure of office. Yes,
I thank my honourable friend for giving way.
John Hemming.
On this particular question of a level playing field, would he agree with me that there's merit in the government actually doing a detailed study of the challenges for smaller businesses compared to multiples?
Skidmore.
Absolutely, and what I don't want to put across here is a message that we are anti-supermarket, anti-big business. It's about striking an appropriate balance between the two, ensuring that small businesses are also protected, and at the same time, people in every single constituency have that choice, which they must have. Now, as I was saying, I welcome the change of attitude that's been displayed in the government's programme of the government, which will seek to ensure that level playing field that I was talking about, by enabling councils to take up competition issues into account when drawing up their local plans to shape the direction and type of retail development. I know that in Kingswood, South Gloucestershire Council has taken this message on board and has made a special provision for town centres and local high streets in its core strategy. It was also heartening to read the Secretary of State's speech made on the 20th November at the heart of the community conference, in which he stated, "We will continue to support the town centres first policy. After all, a Conservative government introduced it in 1996. This is something which the Conservative Party for One has long campaigned upon, and I look forward to hearing in the future how the coalition government will ensure that this does indeed take place." Above all, I welcome the Local Growth White Paper, which has set out the government's economic ambition to build a fairer and more balanced economy, driven by private sector growth within local communities. Indeed, it has set out its commitment and belief that viable town centres are also key drivers of our economy. This can only benefit our local high streets, in particular by reforming the planning system, so that it is driven by communities who want growth, rather than the system we inherited that stifles development and innovation and acts as a barrier to economic recovery.
For my honourable friend give way.
Yes.
I'm very grateful to my honourable friend.
Henry Smith.
In my own local authority's case of Crawley Borough Council and West Sussex County Council, they several years ago worked very closely together to regenerate the High Street. There is another thoroughfare in my local authority area known as the Boulevard, which the local councils are now looking to redevelop. And is it not the case that in the Local Growth White Paper and the localisation of planning policies that the coalition government is introducing, they will be even more successful in being able to achieve that?
Skidmore.
I entirely agree with my honourable friend, who I know in his tenure at West Sussex did a tremendous job, and hopefully this government can take forward some of the work and learn from what he implemented in West Sussex. By introducing a presumption in favour of sustainable economic development, it must be sustainable, and introducing a new right for communities to shape their local areas through neighbourhood plans, we are providing the seedbed in which local businesses will be able to flourish and expand. It is about ensuring that the high street and people who live in the community have a viable economic, sustainable future. Parking, transport, procurement, the threats of supermarkets and out-of-town development, all these are issues that I believe are best dealt with by local authorities, local community groups, local businesses and local people working together. Above all, allowing local people the chance to get involved in the planning process is crucial if we are to improve decision-making. Local problems, I believe, are always best solved at a local level. Many planning decisions will involve the introduction of new buildings. Yet we must not forget that the very nature of many local high streets, historic landmarks in our towns and cities, means that high streets will contain equally historic buildings which are in need of constant preservation. All too often, the presentation of local high streets will be judged on the condition of these buildings and their quality of repair. It is vital that these buildings, many grade listed, are maintained and kept in as best condition as possible. On Kingswood High Street, the local British Legion Club has recognised this, spending tens of thousands of pounds on repairing and cleaning the outside of the building, one of Kingswood landmarks. This has restored the building to its former glory and done much to improve the look of Kingswood High Street. The Legion should be thanked for all their efforts, which have made a real difference. Sadly, though, not all buildings in Kingswood have been fortunate to have been looked after so well. Just off Kingswood High Street is John Whitfield's Tabernacle, a famous Grade 1 listed building, which together with its nearby chapel and grounds has fallen into a tragic state of disrepair. For years, despite great public concern, the building has been allowed to crumble and its grounds become overgrown. As the new local MP, I'm unwilling to allow this blight on the Kingswood landscape, so close to the High Street, to be tolerated. Recently, I've organised a joint meeting with South Gloucestershire Council, English Heritage and the current owners to help drive the restoration of this historic site. English Heritage have now committed £48,000 to urgent repair works for the Tabernacle, and I will be continuing discussions with all relevant parties until we've reached a workable solution. Though the Tabernacle project is once again moving, there are still other derelict buildings near Kingswood High Street or on its vicinity which I am campaigning to see restored or improved. The former Linden Hotel in Kingswood is indeed such a building, which I'm determined to see improved. For years, like the Tabernacle, the building has fallen into disrepair. It is all too easy to sit back and allow this to happen. Much harder to stand up and do something about it. But as local MPs, if we are genuinely to stand up for our local areas, this is something we must begin to tackle. These local buildings should never have been allowed to fall into such a state. But I'm not here to challenge the past, only to champion the future.
David Collins.
Old friend, would you share my concern that in the role of landlords with their premises, particularly in town centres, and the level of dilapidation of some of the retail stock in town centres is such that market forces alone would struggle to regenerate some of these areas?
Skidmore.
I agree, it is very difficult, and often landlords can be recalcitrant in a difficult market with dealing with some of these problems. But I do feel that when you have historic high streets, historic buildings that are in need of protection, we do need to go push further to ensure that they are regenerated where necessary. And I'm a strong champion for looking after those type of buildings that are in place. The point, above all, is that we must have pride in our buildings and in the local area if we are to have pride in our local communities. And it's this sense of pride that's been pointed out in the Sun's newspaper's recent campaign to save the British high street. We need to make our high streets more attractive places to shop in. This can be achieved in a variety of ways, often at low cost. Planting trees or shrubs, installing hanging baskets, providing more bins, and having dedicated teams to remove fly posters, graffiti and chewing gum. All this will make our high streets cleaner and more enjoyable to visit. Above all, I believe the government needs a strategy in place to tackle our empty and derelict shops and to ensure that at a local level, as is the case with the Kingswood Business Association, local communities can be empowered to get these shops back into use, whether through local knowledge, sharing best practice, or the introduction of lower rates set by the local authority. The Sun's campaign has also pointed out the need to take a hard line on retail crime, for instance shoplifting and antisocial behaviour. I agree. Shoppers must feel safe in their local high streets. If there's any chance of intimidation might take place, it must be tackled. Any damaged or vandalised property must be repaired as soon as possible and must never be tolerated. Equally, a business that is frequently the victim of crime is a business at risk of closing down. Tackling crime against small businesses can only assist urban regeneration. We should also recognise that the nightlife of a local high street is equally important to the reputation of local high streets and their long-term sustainability. I found in Kingswood a mutual desire on the part of restaurant owners, pubs and nightclub owners, the police and South Gloucestershire Council, to ensure that Kingswood High Street is as safe a place as possible to enjoy a meal or a drink on a night out. South Gloucestershire Council has recently made a substantial investment in CCTV, at the same time as investing in taxi marshals to ensure that local people are able to get home safely. I'm also delighted that with the refurbishment of the Kingswood Civic Centre, itself a huge investment by South Gloucestershire Council, signalling its commitment to invest in Kingswood, the local police will once again be based on Kingswood High Street able to meet the immediate needs of the local community and its safety. We should be on the constant lookout for ways in which to make our local high streets as safe as possible, and as the local MP, I'm continuing to work with every single interested party to ensure that this takes place. Already in Kingswood, we are witnessing new changes, new beginnings. Since the election of a new council in 2007, the local community has witnessed record investment in Kingswood. But change must be matched with a commitment for the future. There is much more to do. I am committed to doing the best I can for Kingswood, standing up for our local high street. And as members of Parliament, we should and we must act as effective champions for our local areas, refusing to allow the status quo to merely continue, refusing to stand still and allow our local high streets to fall into disrepair. We too have a responsibility to stand up for our communities and high streets, and to enable local people to discover how they can make their high streets better places to work, better places to shop, and better places to enjoy. Thank you.